In 1920, in Boston, an Italian immigrant to the United States named Charles Ponzi brought a get-rich opportunity to everyone. At that time, the Postal Service used international reply coupons. These coupons allowed the sender to prepay the postage fee for the recipient's reply. After World War II, the United States had a very stable currency. If one bought reply coupons outside the U.S. with foreign currency, sent them to the U.S., and sold them, they would make a profit of about 10%. Realizing he could make a profit, this man started looking for investors with extremely attractive offers.
Invest with me. I will buy international postage stamps from other countries, then bring them back here to exchange for U.S. stamps and make a huge profit. You will also get a share of that. How about 1% each week? Invest $1 million and just sit back. Next week you'll receive $10,000. When you no longer want to invest, you can withdraw your entire principal, and it's all legal. Easy money.
The opportunity seemed like it fell from the sky. Thousands of people scrambled to invest, only to find out it was all a scam. The money was no longer there. This scam was so big that similar scams are still called Ponzi schemes, and Charles Ponzi was neither the first nor the last to carry it out. So who really created the Ponzi scheme? How big was Charles's scam? First, we need to explain Ponzi schemes and how they differ from pyramid schemes. Ponzi schemes simply require you to invest a certain amount of money up front to receive a percentage of returns later, usually calculated over a specific period. They are often confused with another concept called pyramid schemes. In pyramid schemes, participants must pay a fee or purchase a product to become part of the network and benefit by recruiting more people to join. The common point of both mechanisms is that they are forms of fraud that create the illusion of high credibility, requiring a continuous flow of money from new investors without actually conducting any business or providing any product or service. Regarding pyramid schemes, they rely primarily on network marketing and require participants to recruit others into the system for the earlier participants to make a profit. Consequently, each person will receive a commission, while the money they had to spend to join the network will gradually be transferred to the top. As for Ponzi schemes, they always approach victims as a type of investment management service, making participants believe that the profits they receive are entirely legitimate, while the mastermind simply uses money from one person to pay another. The person who truly perfected this fraudulent scheme was Charles Ponzi. His scam caused damage so severe that it led to the collapse of around 6 banks and investment funds, causing investors to lose an estimated $20 million. Even 100 years later, his name is still remembered. Charles Ponzi hailed from Parma, Italy. Initially, he claimed to have studied at the University of Rome La Sapienza. However, he never completed his studies or earned a proper degree. Charles boarded a ship and crossed the Atlantic to the United States, not to do business, but to gamble away his remaining money in poker, blackjack, and roulette. Penniless, Charles Ponzi did various jobs, from peddling to washing dishes, showing a bit of diligence. He started learning English and became fluent in the language, which opened up opportunities for advancement from a dishwasher to a waiter. However deeply ingrained with fraudulent tendencies, he was soon fired for scamming customers and stealing. This wasn't the only time Charles Ponzi committed crimes. His criminal record grew increasingly extensive, especially noted by the police. In 1907, Canadian police arrested him for check forgery. After serving a 3-year prison sentence, Ponzi immediately got involved in smuggling illegal immigrants from Italy to the U.S. This landed him back behind bars for another 2 years. Despite continuous failures, Charles Ponzi was very persistent, and persistence often leads to eventual success. Ponzi returned to Boston and got married. With a family to support, he continued to pursue legal means of making money. He proposed an idea that later became the Yellow Pages directory to sell advertising to clients, though initially it went unnoticed. Persisting in searching for new business ideas, Ponzi eventually found his life's breakthrough. It came in the form of a letter from a company in Spain proposing a business idea exchange. However, his attention wasn't caught by the content of the letter, but by an international reply coupon, IRC. At that time, IRCs could be used as stamps and were accepted by many countries. The Postal Service used these reply coupons to allow senders to prepay postage for recipients. The recipient could simply take the coupon and exchange it for stamps at the local post office to send a reply. After World War I, the United States was the only country with stable currency compared to gold. Meanwhile, currencies in European countries drastically depreciated due to extensive military spending. In theory, if one bought IRCs in foreign countries at a low exchange rate compared to the US dollar and sold them back in the US, it was easy money, earning profits as high as 10%. Ponzi recognized this opportunity and decided to exploit it on a large scale. At this point, a new challenge arose. Where would Ponzi get the initial capital? Depleting all his available funds, Charles Ponzi began hiring agents to purchase cheap international reply coupons in other countries and started sending them to the US to implement his plan. Simultaneously, he crafted invitations to attract investors. The exchange scheme that Ponzi devised was seen as a speculative arbitrage, entirely legal. Therefore, Ponzi's wife established the Securities Exchange Company in Boston, and later they solicited financial support with promises of returns up to 50% within 45 days. Some early investors confidently put their money into Ponzi's scheme and received returns as promised initially. Courageous investors who received their returns continued to invite new investors. Successful introducers immediately received a 10% commission. Good news spread, and money flowed continuously, accompanied by strong belief in the dream investment opportunity. By February 1920, Ponzi had $5,000 in hand, a substantial amount at the time equivalent to about $75,000 today. Just 1 month later, that amount had multiplied by 6. With funds in hand, Ponzi hired numerous employees and continued to gather money from other areas like New England and New Jersey. By September 1920, the capital raised had reached $15 million, equivalent to $225 million today. With a vast number of investors, Ponzi became immensely wealthy, at least on paper. However, the supply of IRCs in the market was limited, and the demand for postal services was not sufficient to continuously circulate the existing coupons. Ponzi found himself in a situation where he had money, but couldn't continue investing in the company because there were no more IRCs available to purchase. Later, in an investigation by journalists Richard Grocer, Eddie Dunn, and Clarence Barron from the Boston Post, it was revealed that the average daily conversion value of IRCs in the U.S. was only about $8, while approximately 27,000 IRCs were in circulation on the market. With the amount of money Ponzi had, he would need to mobilize at least 750 million IRCs or more. Meanwhile, investors were being paid monthly returns with incredibly high interest rates. So, Ponzi executed a genius move. He used the investors' own money to pay them enormous commissions, leading investors to believe they were actually making profits. In reality, Ponzi's own investment funds were gradually dissipating, akin to Spider-Man fading away after Thanos snapped his fingers. After the investigative documents from the Boston Post were published, regulatory authorities and auditors immediately stepped in. Upon examining Ponzi's books, investigators discovered that he owed a massive debt of up to $7 million, while he admitted to having only about $3 million in assets. Charles Ponzi's scheme was exposed. At that point, investors were divided into two states, either cursing Ponzi or blaming themselves for investing with someone who had a criminal record. Subsequently, the fallout led to the collapse of 6 banks and investment funds. Ponzi's investors ultimately received back only 30% of their initial investments. Meanwhile, the Boston Post proudly received the Pulitzer Prize for its community service in uncovering Ponzi's pyramid scheme. In 1920, Charles Ponzi was arrested for failing to demonstrate his ability to repay debts related to charges of mail fraud. Whether right or wrong, Ponzi obediently went in to receive a reduced sentence, only facing 5 years in federal prison. After serving 3.5 years, Ponzi was released, only to face further charges of securities fraud in Massachusetts, resulting in an additional 9-year sentence due to his overconfidence and attempts at self-rehabilitation. Before his trial in Massachusetts, Ponzi posted bail to be released to Florida, where he started a small company selling swampy land named Sharpon Land Syndicate. However, this endeavor turned out to be another attempt to build a new pyramid scheme, promising returns of 200% in 2 months. And of course, this guy received another year in prison. By 1934, Ponzi had served his prison sentence in full. By then, perhaps the United States had had enough of this Italian man, so Ponzi was promptly deported back to his country of origin, partly because he had not obtained U.S. citizenship. Later on, Ponzi became an agent for Italy's Alla Littoria airline in Brazil and also wrote his autobiography during this time, recounting his once glittering career. In January 1949, Ponzi passed away in Rio de Janeiro. At the time of his death, he still possessed a substantial estate of $75, just enough to cover a modest funeral from a cemetery for the poor. Despite his life of crime and imprisonment, Ponzi remained a notable figure remembered and studied by future generations. Even 100 years later, the model he perfected is still referenced. In some poorer and developing countries, without clear laws against Ponzi schemes, these Ponziers continue to use upgraded methods to deceive and indeed make significant illicit gains. However, everything comes with a price. These Ponziers have also faced sentences proportional to their earnings. And now, thank you all for watching. Goodbye and see you next time.